Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the Comedy Slab. We are 100, yes? Two centenarians. I nearly said senseless centenarians, that would be more accurate. Yeah, this is episode 100. Count 'em, because we have. I'm Adrian Lacey in the southeast of England. His nibs is known as Shane O'Connor, and he's in the Midlands. Do you feel any different? My dad used to say when it was, my birthday, he said, do you feel different? I was 8 and I didn't know what I was meant to feel as opposed to being 7 the day before.
Yeah, I never feel different with birthdays. I didn't feel different with this. Really. I was just going through the...
Oh, thanks for putting a damper on it already.
Yeah, I didn't. You didn't even get a cake. I mean, it's just rubbish, isn't it, really?
We can have a cake listening back.
I was trying to get my son to do. He can't differentiate. He's just turned 2. I can't differentiate between one or the choices. He can't do choices. So I said to him,
"Welcome to the club."
I said to him, "What would you rather have, cheese or a cake?" And he just goes, "Yes." And I'm thinking, that's not a bad philosophy.
That mean you would be happy with both?
That's not a bad philosophy in life. Just bring it on. I love it all. Yeah, I don't feel... No, I feel... Do you know, there's a sense of achievement I do feel. I mean, it's if you'd have said to me when we started out on this road that we were going to reach 100 episodes and, travel down the road together for a couple of years, I'd have smacked you in the face with a wet kipper. But then I have a surplus of fish, so
also I do get off on that kind of thing. So we're made for each other.
It's the scales, the cold scales he loves. What about you? I mean, you never thought we'd come this far.
This is where you're wrong.
Oh,
completists who listen, and we have some fabulous loyal listeners. Those who might remember. I can't remember, but there's people out there who will remember better than me what number it was. But say it was roughly around 50. I said then, welcome to CS050. And the 0 is significant because that implied that I believed we would get to 100. That's why I put a 0 in front. It's 3 digits to identify CS for Comedy Slab. That's how I categorise it on my, the memory on my laptop and the hard disk and so on. And wherever it is in the cloud. And you don't. Well, you've got to now, but crucially, you didn't.
I don't. I don't.
That confirms you didn't think we'd get this far.
Well, so you're dubious about the 1,000th then, are you? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm dubious whether I'll be alive for the 1,000th. But, we've got another 800, 900 shows to go before I get my maths right.
Yeah. That's a sobering thought for anyone, isn't it, really? So, yeah.
I could getting my maths right.
I take your point there about not putting the extra 0 in front of it. I just don't. It's funny because, I've got an extensive collection of comedy, which is...
yes, that's how you wooed your wife, I'm sure. Which is what I've heard.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Took one look and she had a laugh.
Come and have a look at me step-toes.
Hey!
And one of my pet hates is putting... because it's all digitised, put in 01 for series 1. I always put 1. So
most shows don't go to 10 series, do they?
Increase it. Well, the American ones do. Do you know that's a bigger thing in America than it is here, isn't it? If you look at the American Office, for example, what did it do here? 3 series here and a couple of Christmas specials. Let me just talk amongst yourself. Let's grab it up and
I'll talk to myself.
Which I really liked, actually. It was quite interesting. I liked it once it went away from the British version.
Yeah, found its own feet.
Yeah, and did its own kind of thing. It was a fabulous cast, but that ran to 9 series.
Making my point.
So,
I thought it was 9. I didn't quite have the courage of my convictions.
Curb Your Enthusiasm, that's now on its 10th series.
Yeah.
Parks and Recreation was with Amy Poehler. I never know how to say her name. Amy Poehler? Poehler?
I just called her Amy. Mr. Grimsdale.
Amy, the Amy girl. That
woman.
Parks and Recreation went to... I thought it was more than that. But see, that went to 7 series, but a lot of their series had 20 episodes.
Right.
So it depends how you slice it, doesn't it, love?
Yeah, but that's a lot of shows, isn't it?
It is.
A lot of work.
It is. A lot of writing. A lot of watching.
Yeah.
I was fair worn out when I'd watched it all. I really was.
But I'm reminded of the beautiful Sheryl Crow song. I've got a lovely version of it on a CD tucked away in a box I can't find.
You say I've got a lovely bunch of coconuts. I didn't know she covered that.
Well, that's it's called No One Said It Would Be Easy. It's about a couple staying together, which is not my forte, as regular listeners will know. Well, she said to her, in the live version I've got, she introduced it by saying, my folks are still together. So they have stood the course. And, I've described this, you and me, as a dysfunctional marriage before now. That's probably putting it too kindly, if anything. But the lyric goes on, and no one thought we'd get this far. And I guess that would be our theme tune today.
Yeah.
If only we could afford it.
You're punching way above your weight, I have to say. But yeah, you're right.
What, with Sheryl Crow?
No, with me.
I laughed so much, I dropped my headphone.
I said with me.
Sorry.
You missed that. But there
Oh, say it again.
I said it so loud, his headphones fell off.
It's true.
But then
I'm back in the room. What did you say?
You said what with Sheryl Crow, and I said no, with me. You're punching well above your weight, mate.
Sorry, that was a good gag.
I know. Maybe in the edits we can do something with that.
I've tidied that up. If people are hearing this, I've clearly failed.
Put some audience laughter in or something, if you would, as well.
Yeah, a few cackles from, was it Mrs. Trellis?
Yes. Anyway, episode 100.
So what is the show? Well, moving on. It is A Bit of Fry and Laurie, which I managed to convince myself was called A Little Bit of Fry and Laurie, which is actually a search term on Google, but it doesn't mean there's a show of that name. It just means loads of people like me have imagined it. I'm sure, I thought a spin-off, I've got a book of scripts, I thought that might be called Little Bit of Fry and Laurie. I'm sure something they've done has had the little in front. Anyway, my proud boast, flying in the face of my very strong and highly adhered to policy of never name dropping, as regular listeners will know, I actually worked on the first series of A Bit of Fry and Laurie, which is even more reason to remember the title correctly. But hey, it's 31 years ago?
87, was it
33
87?
years. 33 years ago.
89.
Live and breathe. Oh, don't change it while I'm doing the maths.
89.
31, yeah, that's right first time.
Yeah.
31 years ago. So I think if I can't remember every last detail, hopefully I can be forgiven. But I won't do it now, but I will doubtless be sprinkling some little anecdotes about what it meant to be behind the scenes on the show as a sound techie and working with Messrs. Fry and Laurie.
So you worked on the episode. We're actually slabbing then because you worked on the first series, yeah?
Yeah, although this is one of the things I can't remember. I mean, we probably just recorded loads and loads and loads. Well, we definitely recorded loads of sketches, and they weren't necessarily at the time we recorded. I don't know if they were. No, actually, they probably were tied to an episode. But of course, there is leeway. You could always move episode 3's sketch to episode 2. It's not topical, is it? It's not.
Didn't you say that last week that very often they'd shoot 3 first? Episode 3.
I did a chat show with Steve Wright where that was the case. So that by the time, so episode 1 in recording order is not the one that goes out. So if there's any wobbles or teething problems, by then you've hit the ground running as a viewer. You've already seen another 2 episodes before.
Clever,
that's why it's done.
Clever.
Yeah, it's clever.
Interestingly as well, the other thing, I don't know whether you know this, but they did a pilot in 87. That's why I said 87. They did a for some reason, a 36-minute pilot. I don't know why.
I wonder whether I worked on that. Did it ever go out? Or was it non-TX, as we say, not transmitted pilot?
An edited version went out by all accounts. I think they got it down.
There was a hilarious song. Sorry.
No, they got it down to 27 minutes, I think, or something like that, which would have fit in the schedule then, wouldn't it? But 36 minutes wouldn't have done. So I don't know why the I suppose they thought it wasn't going to be broadcast, but it did eventually be broadcast. Sorry, there's an hysterical song. What?
Well, I think there was a song that. I've got everything's a vague recollection at the moment, but I think I watched the series as it went out. And I think there was a song by Stephen Fry. It was so off the wall. I don't even know if I should talk about it, but I don't think it went out. And I don't know why I think that, because I'd have to have watched every last minute to be sure it didn't go out. But I think it's the fact that he starts walking into the audience, but it was an empty audience, so it was something we would have pre-recorded in the day. And he's singing a song about, apologies, and don't be eating while I tell you this. He's singing a song about stinking of urine and vomit. Or maybe it was even, I know, Shane, who I can see on FaceTime, is shaking his head. I was appalled too. But it's, Stephen Fry at his just kind of shut off. That was part of the gag in a way, that he could say ridiculous things and just carry on and not corpse and look completely deadpan. Anyway, and just before I set up the first clip, if indeed I can remember what's in it, I've got to second guess. This is all your fault, Shane. I mean, we could quietly drop it for the new I nearly said new millennium, the new centenary.
The centennium.
The centennium. Which is for me to second guess what I think you thought of it, and even if I'm feeling keen, to anticipate what will be your score out of 5 at the end of the show for A Bit of Fry Laurie. I've got a feeling you're not going to like it because it's too twee for you. It's too posh, middle class, upper middle class, public school. I didn't choose it to wind you up, but I got a feeling it might just have done so. Although, in fairness, it doesn't take an awful lot to do that, does it? If we're honest, I think even you can acknowledge that. You're wired, aren't you? You're wired. Even when you watch The Wire, you're wired.
They don't call me Hair Trigger O'Connor for nothing.
No, exactly. They don't call you hair anything.
It's because I've got a hairy trigger.
I don't want to know your hairy
Despite the fact
trigger.
I've used creams, I've shaved it twice a week, and it's still hairy.
And you put the folly into follicle.
Yes.
Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to say that this is actually, I think I've cheated and gone straight into the first sketch. There might be sort of a bit of, there's opening titles I've fast-forwarded past, but this is a minute or so from the first sketch, which is all about language. I'm so tempting to say language Timothy, isn't it? But that's confusing two shows. I can only say sorry.
Oh.
That was my first sitcom to work on.
You weren't on Sorry, did you?
I did indeed. I'm not apologetic about that. Yeah. We'll do that another time. We must slap it.
Yeah, we must do.
Okay, so it's, in my view, it's Stephen Fry at his brilliant best, his linguistic finest, and in terms of visuals, he's got the most marvellous, well, I think it's a syrup, because it's got a fringe, which he didn't have at that stage, unless he's just came to, no, I think it's a syrup, a wig, syrup of figs, wigs, and he is on the same sofa, somewhat chillingly, as Hugh Laurie, his partner, and Hugh Laurie is playing the interviewer on this somewhat pretentious show about words.
So let's talk instead about flexibility of language, linguistic elasticity, if you like.
Yes, I think I said earlier that our language, English...
As spoken by us.
As we speak it, yes, certainly, defines it. We are defined by our language, if you will.
Hello, we're talking about language.
Perhaps I can illustrate my point. Let me at least try. Here's a question.
What is it?
Well, my question is this. Is our language, English, capable? Is English capable of sustaining demagoguery?
Demagoguery?
Demagoguery.
And by demagoguery you mean?
By demagoguery, I mean demagoguery.
I thought so.
I mean, highly charged oratory, persuasive whipping up rhetoric. Listen to me. If Hitler had been British, would we, under similar circumstances, have been moved, charged up, fired up by his inflammatory speeches, or would we simply have laughed? Is English too ironic to sustain Hitlerian styles? Would his language simply have rung false in our ears?
Before I tell you what I think, you were supposed to give me a score, weren't you? You did. Well,
sorry.
Tell me what my score was going to be.
I was determined this was going to be the most polished show yet.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, well, it's because I polished off a gin. That's where I went wrong. Yes, your score. Well, you sat there impassively, as you do, looking at your visage. You could always surprise me, but going with my thought...
Sorry.
That didn't work.
Sorry. I didn't really put a lot of effort in. I don't know if you could tell.
No, you didn't. No, that was it. It's, Boom!
Yeah.
I think... it's going to be 2. If it's any less than 2, I will be very upset. And, okay. Poor choice for a centenary if I'm right. I hope I'm wrong. I hope you're going to surprise me.
Boo. Right. Shall I give you a headline?
That will be a clue.
And that will put you out of your misery, wouldn't it, somewhat, I would have thought.
Yes, please do then.
My headline is, I'd like a lot of Fry Laurie.
Oh! Well, for once I'm glad I'm wrong, because I'm wrong in the wrong direction, as it were, and you're right in the right... That's not really clear.
It's curious what you say, though, and I think it's quite an interesting thing, and I don't know whether it was just different times and a different awareness. But you mentioned, this kind of... I forget what you said now, but I kind of took it to be this sort of Oxbridge, this footlights.
Bit twee, upper middle class.
Yeah.
Public school.
Yeah, but I don't think there was an awareness of that at the time that this went out. And I remember thinking, it's like Monty Python. There was no awareness that they were all a bunch of posh lads that had come out of university, and that's where it had come from. And similarly, I remember Graham Garden. I remember my brother saying, "Oh, he's a doctor." Graham Garden, he got a doctorate, and then thinking, "Oh, okay." There wasn't that awareness, was there? I think university education was a different thing 40 years ago, and I've never, because they were just presented to us by the box in the corner of the room, which again there was that kind of acceptance. Oh, if it's on the TV, then that's it. That we don't. I don't know. I never really perceived me in that way, and that's probably stayed with me as well. I've always been a big fan of their work, apart from one thing, which I'll tell you a little bit later, maybe.
You're teasing me.
I could.
Well, no, maybe about it. You're going to have to tell me now.
Yeah,
you've told me. You're going to tell me.
I will. Shall I?
So we do it now before I forget, because I surely will.
Okay. They can't finish a gag.
No, we have talked about it.
They can't finish a sketch.
Said by a colleague. Yeah, they fall out of character, and yeah. But it made me think. Well, okay, all the great sketches. I think if indeed one falls in with the conventional view for people of a certain age, take 4 Candles, classic Two Ronnies. That ends up with a visual gag, which is Ronnie Barker putting on the counter bull hooks.
Bill hooks.
That's bill hooks.
Bill hooks they are, yeah.
I thought it was bull hook.
No, a bill hook. A bill hook is a...
Okay, even subtler.
Yeah.
Oh, it's, yeah. But I'm giving away my lack of... But that's quite a good end, isn't it? And it's visual.
But they wrote 4 endings for that. Ronnie Barker wrote 4 endings for that. And
as George Wiley?
Yes.
Nom de plume.
And I can't think what the other 3 were, but I remember seeing an interview of him saying they did one and he thought, oh, that's a bit crude.
Right.
And then they did another one and they said, oh, no, it's not really. It's either 3 or 4 endings. And they came to it and that was the one that they went with at the end.
Which is quite crude by the 70s standards,
yeah,
isn't it?
But I mean, they were
the undertow.
They were masters of the bum titty bum bums, weren't they, as Smith and Jones?
I thought you were going to say something else that began with masters, as you pronounce it. But anyway.
Do you remember Smith and Jones parodied them and Ronnie Barker was furious about it? They did.
But Ronnie Corbett was more relaxed. Was it that way round?
Corbett wasn't really bothered, I don't think. As long as he could get his tea off time, he wasn't really worried, was he? He was quite relaxed.
Can I just say, and this is not innuendo, your Twiglet is licking himself. I think we should probably translate that.
Herself.
I can see your cat, herself. I beg her pardon. That would have been even funnier, potentially. I could see a little head bobbing up and down.
Oh, bless.
Bobbing up and down like this.
She sat on the sofa behind me. But yeah, and so that's the one frustration is that, and in fact, when on my notes, there was only one that I think it was the America song.
America.
That I thought the ending was great, where Stephen Fry comes on and smashes Hugh Laurie in the face, kind of thing. But yeah, they couldn't end a sketch.
Yeah, They were rather fond of ending, though, with smashings in face, because there's a sketch, not in this show, but I remember one I worked on. And the trouble is, I can't remember which scenes I worked on, which is surprising, even allowing for 31 years, because I can remember, working on the Fast Show and Blackadder Goes Forth. I can remember the scenes, and if I see them again, my left hand starts to twitch as a boom operator.
Thank goodness
I know
for that.
where I've got to. Well, exactly. It could have been worse. Could have been so much.
Is that what they call it now?
Well, it's my cover story, and I'm sticking to it.
It's all right, officer. I'm a boom operator. Never mind, son. Put your trousers on. You're coming down the station.
Yeah, and that's the end of your twitching, mate. Your twitching career.
Yeah.
But no, I can remember. There's a Fast Show sketch I did. Colin Hunt. Got to be careful how I say that after a gin. The office joker, of course, with his bubbly hair.
I love him.
I can remember where he splits right to go to the cabinet, and when I see that, I know I've got to go with him on the boom, so the microphone follows him.
Right.
But I can't remember which, and that was very annoying to me. It's probably annoying me even talking about it to listeners. But what was I going to say? A sketch about Hugh Laurie. It's what they call a quickie, in the trade, where Hugh Laurie just says to camera, and this again is quite dated as a reference now that, of course, there was no internet then, but he says straight into the camera, looking really jolly, I'm going to speak to the man responsible for all the leaflets that are put into our Radio Timeses, all those adverts that fall out when you open the magazine, and I'm going to shoot him. And he just walks off, and that is it. So there's a lot of sort of violence referred to, or you actually see it.
Well,
but I know I absolutely take your point. They don't know, and it saddens me, and it baffles me, because they're bright brains, aren't they?
Oh, there's some of the funniest sketches. I mean, and the humour and the wordplay. I don't think anyone can beat them. There's no question about that. But the police sketch, when he's giving his name to the police officer.
And he drops an article. That is his surname. The sound of
it's a cigarette lighter, isn't it? It's one of my favourite sketches of all time. I mean, you've only got to put Fry and Laurie police sketch into YouTube, and it comes up about 30 times because it's that popular.
Right. I didn't know, because I should say, or remind people, they may have called it last week, that I don't think I've seen this show for over 20 years. So it came to me anew.
Right. See, this is one that I've watched again and again and again and again. The whole
without telling me,
the whole series.
See, the secret of a good marriage, which we don't have, is communication. So makes my point.
I thought it was secret, because
and lies, mostly lies.
Because yeah.
Subterfuge, that's what works. Yeah. Hang on, no, that's what doesn't work. I always get it wrong.
But what I was going to say was that sketch, that policeman sketch, and at the end of that, it's Hugh Laurie, isn't it? He said that his name is Mr. and he drops his cigarette lighter, and he says, "How are you spelling that?" And he says, "In the usual way." So, well,
no, as it sounds.
As it sounds, yeah. He says, well, never mind all that. He said, if you can spell it for me. He says, NIPPL-E.
-E.
And then he says, Mr. Nipple, calling him that. But then he gives him his address and he says, it's 22, and he does a little tap dance and then slaps him round the face.
Like that.
And he says, from some angles, it looks like 22. He gives him a real punch in the face, Stephen Fry.
That's Stephen Fry replying, yeah.
Anyway, it all culminates, and this will get to my point now, but it all culminates where he goes, from some distance, some angles, it looks like 22, tap dance, picks up a cricket bat and wallops it with him. And Hugh Laurie says, it's too hard, it's too hard. He said, I'm not on about the frigging sketch. He said, you hit me too hard. And then, quite clearly recorded afterwards, Stephen Fry turns to the camera and says, "Oh, he's such a child, really," or something like that. And I just wondered, did he actually? I mean, was that real, or was that scripted? That it's too hard and all that sort of stuff. Can you remember that?
Gosh, no, I'm afraid I don't. But obviously, you'll know this, and our listeners will. Obviously, it's a plastic cricket bat, so there's much acting going on.
Yeah,
and that's obviously in the script. No, I don't know. What I could say generally is I don't believe they tweaked anything on the day. Whereas if I'm in full name drop mode, working on just one of the Alan Partridges, take two, Steve Coogan.
Yes.
Alan Partridge is a fictional character played by Steve Coogan, of course. Who could forget? He came up with a couple of lines on the day, literally, and that was really exciting. Seeing stuff being in effect written, but not even written down. But because Steve Coogan's a proper pro and a nice guy, he'd run it past the writer as a courtesy, so he wouldn't just do it. He'd say, "Is that right, Pete?" And it was Peter
Bainham, was it? Yeah.
Bainham, yeah. Fantastic writing. That's in the second series.
Right.
But I don't recall any of that. There was lots of jollity. A really pleasant show to work on. I've got a vague feeling I think it was a Saturday, and weekends always more relaxed. You haven't got to fight your way through the rush hour, if anyone can remember that far back. Now we're in lockdown. And there's no management around to get in the way. And you just get on with making a nice show with nice people. Just absolute sweetest to work with.
When you watch the outtakes, I'm not really quite sure.
Which I haven't seen for 31 years.
Really?
Oh.
You should have a look because they're.
I should. Everyone should.
Sorry, the outtakes.
So.
No, the outtakes I was talking about were Steve Coogan ones from Partridge.
Oh, sorry, right.
Yeah, but I've seen that one where Michael the Geordie. I can never remember the guy Simon Greenall who plays. He does
gibberish.
He does the voice of the meerkat, doesn't he? Alexander the meerkat on the Compare the Meerkat adverts now.
I imagine he's quite comfortable with that now.
Must be quite minted, I would have thought. But Simon Greenall plays Michael the Geordie.
Really?
And Partridge answers the door and he's got chocolate round his face. Do you remember that one?
I do.
And he goes,
that was the show I worked on.
And he has to go, you got a little bit of chocolate around your fist, Mr. Partridge. And Coogan just keeps breaking up. It's just, so they look like they're having a real good laugh doing it, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's,
I'd forgotten that.
Yeah, fabulous. But yeah, no, these two, I always get the impression they're trying to make each other corpse. I don't know.
Well, you know what their template was? If I asked you who they modelled themselves on, comedy duo of a previous era.
Oh, do you know what I would have said? At times, it's like watching John Cleese and Eric Idle.
Is that your final offer? Are you answering a question with a question like a politician?
But they weren't a comedy duo. So a comedy duo.
Let me tell you how Stephen Fry phrased it without mentioning the names, which was he said we sensed a gap on BBC2 where these two had previously been. Here's your clue. It's not a massive clue. From the 60s into the 70s.
Peter Cook and Dudley Moore.
Yes, absolutely.
Peter Cook.
So intelligent BBC Two styled humour, and they felt no one had got into filled the shoes, as it were, of Pete Dud. No, I mean, mate.
And yet, curiously, this went out on 2 and 1, didn't it?
Did it?
Yeah.
Well, a later series went out on 1?
Transferred to 1. I think 3 and 4 went out on...
That's a classic thing. People listening outside the UK, I mean, BBC Two is a little more select and usually generally smaller audiences. So they were, it's quite a well-trodden path, isn't it? Especially for something they think initially is a bit minority. They'll test it out on BBC Two, or in more recent years, you could say that of BBC 4 before it goes to BBC 2, and some shows have even gone from 4 to 2 to 1, and 1 being the big mainstream.
I don't really understand what the difference between 2 and 4 is, but that's another conversation for another day.
Yes.
Which is probably why there's so much pressure on 4 to not exist anymore, isn't it? Or if they're going to get rid of 1, they wouldn't get rid of 2 because of the heritage, but 4 is a lot like 2 and.
4 is more vulnerable, although it should really be more. It is quite archive driven. I think it's got a future as an archive channel. But anyway,
curiously, this all works when not only talking about the BBC but also talking about Thunderbirds. So it's just funny how things work. Should we have another clip?
Yes, Mr. Tracy.
4 was my favourite. I don't know about you.
Is that the underwater one, the yellow one?
4 was the yellow one, yeah.
What's the one that couldn't possibly, under any circumstances, fly?
Two.
The green one.
Two, yeah.
Is that two? I loved two.
The green one.
But it's completely unworkable.
I mean, not only that, but if you like the payload in the pod was like the weight of a small city, wasn't it? Really? So yeah.
Mind you, I think America's got stuff like that.
Do you know
I
what?
think they modelled their militia on the military on Thunderbird.
I interviewed Jerry Anderson once. I must dig that out, because. He was,
yeah, you must.
And he was terrible because he's such a lovely man. Very quiet, very self-effacing. And he told me about, he said he used to go to his local because he was so lonely.
He said that in the interview.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the news was at one stage, because Mary featured in Thunderbirds, didn't she? And that was his wife's name.
No,
allegedly
Sylvia was his wife's name, wasn't it? Sylvia.
Oh, right, sorry.
Sylvia Anderson,
Sorry. Sylvia, I beg your pardon. And then he divorced her, and the rumour was, whether it was put about for publicity purposes, I mean, I couldn't possibly speculate, but she became the hag in Terrorhawks, which my friend worked on. It will be either cursing me for remembering wrongly or laughing along with us. I remember quite cruel, if true.
I do remember him saying to me, he said how supportive Lou Grade was to him. He said,
boss of ITV,
yeah,
with his fat cigar,
yeah. Who was wasn't he at ITC? Was it ITC then? I think that used
ATV,
to make.
whatever it was.
And he said I used to go. And he said I'd be shaking. I go into Lou Grade's office, and he'd say, "My boy, have you got any ideas? Have you got any ideas?" With his big fat cigar, and he'd say, yes, I've got this one. He said, and I told him about Thunderbirds. He said, do you like it? Would you think? He said, my boy, he said, you could make an animation about that light bulb up there. He said, and everybody would watch it. Go and make it. Go on. He said, and he said he was really supportive of him. But I'm not sure you get those kind of moguls nowadays, do you? But
moving swiftly on, this is clip number 2. Well, I've just clipped off the very beginning of this, where you would hear Hugh Laurie in the role of a vagrant or a homeless man, whatever. He's busking, and so we just missed the beautiful rendition on his mouth organ, Mrs. And a certain Stephen Fry in the role of, I should say, a besuited gentleman, a city gent type, is taking exception to this particular role. And I'm going to ask you, Shane, after this, who do you think Stephen Fry is channeling in this character?
You sit there sprawled against a paving stone, blowing through spittle, and people actually pay you? It's unbelievable!
Oh, look, if you don't like it, you don't have to listen or give me anything,
Not like it? How could I like it? It's the most pathetic noise I've ever heard! And people give you money for it?
Well, it's kindness as well, isn't it? They're just being kind.
Just being kind? Just being kind? What do you mean, just being kind? If they were just being kind, they'd put a bullet through your head, wouldn't they? That's what I call being kind. Put you out of your misery.
You're very insulting,
Yes, I know. Of course I'm insulting. I'm very insulting indeed. Especially to smelly, squalid poor people who can't play the harmonica properly.
We share the same planet. Why can't you let me be?
Share the same planet? Have you gone mad? Share the same planet? What are you talking about? The planet I inhabit is full of fast cars, restaurants, holidays in Barbados, and fine wines. Your planet is full of bottles of meths, howling harmonicas, and grimy doss houses.
Well, I can't... who he's channeling, I can't actually tell you with words, but I could tell you with a sound.
Just the voice. You mean the character from Blackadder Goes Forth?
It's Melchett, isn't it? It's General Melchett all the way.
Well, yes, except that would obviously be afterwards. You can't channel something that hasn't happened yet, unless he was starting to create the character. I don't know when it was being written.
To me, that's when he went to a Melchett. I mean, that was him, wasn't it? I mean, that was his angry man.
Well, that would be the reverse channeling. Yeah, no, I accept that. I was thinking of a separate artiste who you've already mentioned him. So there's a clue.
John Cleese.
Yeah, it's got to be Basil Fawlty, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's that.
Manuel!
It's that kind of controlled hysteria,
controlled.
Isn't it, really?
Only just controlled, yeah.
Here's an interesting thing. I don't know what you think of this. Did you count how many sketches are in this half-an-hour show?
They are longer than would be the case today, aren't they?
Yeah.
Is that your point?
Is it
Yeah,
a historical thing, do you think? Is it the history?
Yeah, everything's got shorter and faster, yeah.
Right.
I think.
Eight sketches in the whole of the show.
Yeah, it's not much, is it?
No.
Really, in the scheme of things.
I mean,
for a sketch show.
I mean, the one that there was Tony and Control, which I never really got, I'll be honest with you. I got it, I knew what it was, but I never kind of really got the humour in it, other than he was like a really nice guy and he was supposed to be working for the security services. But that one was, I think it was about 3 minutes, something like that, which is about normal, isn't it? I think is about normal for a sketch, about 3 minutes.
Probably these days.
But the language one was 4 minutes dead. The one that you clipped off. It had
already made its point 2 minutes in, hadn't it?
Interesting, isn't it? But they were allowed to. No script editor on this. Or do you think that's a significant thing?
Might be, although it might be one of those cases. I'm sure I've said it before, and certainly in the case of radio, where there's less money and so hence fewer people. I think the producer would ultimately have the role as a script editor.
Right.
So an uncredited role, one of many by a producer, but I could be wrong on that. That's just a hunch.
What I do really like, and I think was their trademark, and it's the bits that I remember the most from this, the whole of the 4 series, are the voxes that they do in between.
Oh, they're lovely. Yeah, they wouldn't. They're a bit visual in a way. I didn't clip them. Maybe I should have done, but yeah, they're hilarious, and they've held up well because some things feel a bit dated, but the surreality, if that is a word, and I think I've coined it earlier, so it must be now. It's just beautiful.
My favourite, I mean, the best one I think they ever made was in this episode, which is the copper. And there's a copper walking away from the camera. He goes, "I'm sorry, I do not speak English," which I just think is it's just brilliant, isn't it? There was that, and my second favourite one was Stephen Fry as a taxi driver, and he
goes to his kid's school.
He said we went to the kid's school. He said they got all the drawings. He said and they put all the drawings up on the wall all around the classroom. He said they were crap.
Are you sure that was Stephen Fry? Because in my warped memory, I thought that was Hugh Laurie.
Stephen Fry, definitely, all the way. In fact, he got like a kind of quiff thing going on. That's how I remember it. But,
and what they're brilliant at is holding it to the bitter end. Like they coming back to the copper. He does beautiful head turns, and I probably wouldn't have spotted it at the time. It's just, 30 years on, I've spent an awful lot of time, some lovely time with actors, and you really see the craft and. They were skillful ahead of their age, really, and experience.
Bit of class.
Precocious.
What do you think? Yeah. What do you think of the? I suppose what would you call it? A guest appearance by Deborah Norton, who did a kind of Joyce Grenfell sort of thing, didn't she?
She sounded like Maureen Lipman in terms of her voice. A slightly surreal sketch with the hands. I was hoping we were going to get... My favourite sketch, sadly, isn't in this show. And there was a slightly testy exchange. Can we say testy on this show? Between you and me on WhatsApp in advance of this. Not last week, but the week before. Where I was asking you, can you find the episode that's got this sketch in? And I proceeded to describe it. And then you came back with something that's mostly unprintable and unpodcastable. But it was, shall we say, words to the effect... do you think I know every flipping sketch that there is in the series?
I think what I wanted first and foremost was just for you to clarify that you were asking me to watch 6 episodes.
No, I got the impression that you were a completist who knew it backwards, like the nerd you are.
Unbelievable. Cheeky sausage.
Flipping Billy. Anyway, can I just describe that sketch? I mean, I won't do it justice, but it's gorgeous. If I say I can't watch every show, I don't do that kind of thing, as listeners will know. But essentially, I think it's what was her name? Deborah, forgive me.
Norton. She was actually in Yes Prime Minister. If you remember, she was Sir Humphrey's special advisor, who really got not Sir Humphrey. She was
special.
She was the Prime Minister's special advisor when Jim Hacker became Prime Minister.
Right.
In Yes Prime Minister, she was his special advisor and really got Sir Humphrey's back up
Giddy goat.
He used to call my dear woman, knowing that she was neither dear and he wasn't celebrating her gender at all.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, that's where I knew her from somewhere, but she'd been in that. But yeah, anyway, so
Right.
So
Well,
Deborah,
I assume it's her in this sketch because she was probably the only woman who was in the show, full stop, or that series. Anyway, there's a sketch where Stephen Fry, as I say, I can't do this justice, but Stephen Fry is saying some things. They're lovey-dovey on a sofa, for want of a better term, and I mean, she's madly in love with him, probably the emphasis on the madly, and everything he says, he cannot do any wrong. This is how relationships are. Maybe it's just me, but, you know, in the early phase, you're just all loved up and everything's fine. And she said, darling, that's the most wonderful thing I've ever heard. Is that Twiglet?
yeah, so she wants to go
Heckling.
out.
We're being heckled by a cat.
So she wants to go out. You'll have to wait now.
Well, that's our special centenary gift. Yeah. And then he says something, and I think the joke is, I can't remember what he says, but it's nothing bad. But she suddenly turns and says, darling, don't say silly things. Don't spoil it. We were so in love, darling. And then Stephen Fry, I think, walks off, and the camera goes with him, and I've got this absolute crystal clear vision because I was standing watching this sketch and trying not to laugh out loud, which is a crime. It's like being heckled. You don't want to laugh in the wrong place as a sound engineer when a sketch is being recorded. And then the camera pans and it just finds Hugh Laurie as if by mistake. He just happens to be just offset. And Hugh Laurie either just does an expression or he actually says, what the hell was that all about? And it's just brilliant because you realise, right, it's not me going mad. That was a mad sketch.
Shall we have the final clip? It's an icon,
final.
Isn't it? The last one you've chosen. I looked at the list and I thought, that is. I mean, this was them, wasn't it? It was iconic of the whole of the 4 series. I think this lasted all the way through, didn't it? I think these two.
Yeah, I mean, you were much better versed in because I only worked on that first series, and I'm not even sure. Maybe I saw the second series, but yeah. But no mention of Eutoxeter, so I remembered that wrongly. That came later.
No, that came later. I'll tell you something about Eutoxeter afterwards, because it's only just up the road from me where I live now. So I've got a soft spot for Eutoxeter. It's the swamp at the bottom of my garden.
Let's hope someone puts you there sooner rather than later. Okay, well, if I use the words damn it and Marjorie, people will instantly remember, if they're at all familiar with this sketch. I don't know that I need to particularly set it up, except to say that they're in an office, and you can probably work out, if you've never seen it, you can work out from the dialogue and the general power play between them. They're either you're taken in, or they're a little out of their depth, and making up for it by just speaking more loudly, which is how men work.
It's good to have you back, John.
Save the pretty speeches till later on, Peter. We've got a long night ahead of us.
Just like old times, eh?
Sure, Peter, sure.
You know, it's funny, I drove through High Wycombe just the other day. Yeah, it's Peter here, get me O'Neill.
And fast!
And fast! Say again? Damn it!
What?
O'Neill's out of town, can't be reached.
Damn it to hell and back!
Damn, blast, and double damn! Want to try Amsterdam?
No.
But, I mean...
Come on, Peter, you're not thinking straight. Amsterdam is too obvious. Marjorie was never obvious. That's why I loved her.
My God, here's a turn-up. I never thought I'd hear an old warhorse like you talk about love.
Love's nothing to be afraid of, Peter. You don't need a Harvard MBA to know that the boardroom and the bedroom are just two sides of the same agenda. I wonder...
Try me. Shoot.
Put it together. If we were to act fast, a block of part-paid ordinaries funneled through Geneva. A carefully staged pre-release of IDL preference stock through the back door, underpinned by a notional rights issue. Who the hell would be wincing then?
Damn it, John, it's starting to add up. You want me to try Sydney?
Stay awake, Peter. He'll be in Australia by now.
There are 6 million people out there, Peter. Really? What do they want?
Can I just say, before I forget, for the Legal Beagles, it's, of course, a BBC television copyrighted production in the days of no independent productions on the Beeb. You do love that one, don't you? You've called it iconic.
I do, yeah. I mean, it's even got to the point where, I mean, they wrote a lot of backstory to it, and I read somewhere that it said eventually Marjorie defeated the pair of them in the health club business. It didn't actually get screened, but it led to the two of them running a public toilet. And then later, the Diocese of Uttoxeter. John was the bishop, and Peter was the executive vice bishop. What I didn't get was, they said that they reckon people were saying that the sketch is a parody of TV programmes like Howard's Way, which I was never, my parents never watched, and so consequently,
I think
never
The
watched.
Office looks like theirs.
Oh, does it?
I mean, it's a boardroom, isn't it? I
Right.
said office, but it's a boardroom.
Right.
That rings true from my visual recollection of Howard's Way. But like you, I didn't watch an episode beginning to end, but I knew what it looked like, and yeah,
It would have looked like that.
so. I mean, I meant to ask earlier, how much you think this has got elements of satire, commenting on the politics of the day. Going back to the previous sketch, for all the bluster and the Basil Fawlty and the John Cleasery, is it actually trying to be a comment on Thatcherism? Is there something serious going on under the skin?
I don't know. I always thought they were the Wham of comedy in that sense, going back to a reference from
Wake
last
me
week's
up.
comedy slab. Yeah, I mean, where everybody was writing hard-hitting political lyrics, they were just doing music kind of thing. And in the same way, I kind of thought, I mean, they did sketches about privatisation of the police, didn't they? I think that was in series 1 and things like that. So come in, you're a customer, which ain't far off a prophecy,
so
really.
You're a service user.
Yeah.
Can we have some feedback, please?
Yes. How was your arrest today? And, you kind of think, hello. I mean, personally, that's where I think it all went wrong. But, yeah, I never... But, again, I can't... You can watch things on two different levels, can't you? You can, as we know from watching them in order to talk about them afterwards, you watch them differently. I've just been watching... The Reluctant Landlord. I've watched another couple of episodes from the one that we put on the slab
With Ramesh Ranganathan.
Yeah, and I kind of enjoy. It's not going to be the best comedy you've ever seen, but I'm enjoying it. But I'm partly enjoying it because I'm almost sort of taking my brain out and just enjoying it for what it is, without delving too deeply into it. And I think you can do. And I think with Fry and Laurie you can do that. I mean, if there is a subtext, it never really hit me. Did it you? I mean, did you kind of think it was like that?
I mean, one knows now, of course, if you so much as dip into Stephen Fry's Twitter feed, if you don't find it in other ways, he's obviously on the lefty side that you love to hate, or he does pursue liberal causes. But no, so I wasn't thinking like that at the time, but it's very easy to put a sort of distanced gloss on things or to reinterpret things and not even know you're doing that. Because, I mean, I was in my 20s then. I was a young pup, fresh-faced. I'd just finished training at the Beeb as a sound engineer. So it was early days for me.
I mean, I find it quite interesting that, like, both of them, could be anywhere near liberal with their privileged upbringing and education. I mean, Laurie's
often it goes together, though, doesn't it?
Well, I think he's
champagne socialist.
I think it's a guilt thing, personally. I think it's to assuage your guilt of your privilege, and kind of thinking, oh well, look, I'm really not. I'm not the man because. I'm this, and because of that, my point is that I mean, Stephen Fry, whilst I don't necessarily agree with a lot of things that he says, still find him interesting and have something interesting to say. And I've read Moby's My Wash Pot and the Fry Chronicles, and many other bits and pieces and stuff that he's done. I've enjoyed Jeeves and Wooster that they did together. So. I don't know. I mean, it's the difference, isn't it, between producing a good body of work and having a political persuasion, or not having a great body of work and your political persuasion is bigger than your body of work. And I think that's where the difference lies for me, and that's why I find him fascinating, really. But similarly, Hugh Laurie, great musician. They're both talented guys in their way, aren't they? And
I think I'd have to say he's not a blues singer because he hasn't quite found what the blue note is, but a good pianist.
Yeah, pianist is his forte, pardon the pun. But yeah,
kindly leave the stage.
But you can't produce an album and then not sing on it, can you? That's the problem. Is that he's got is that
you could just do an album of piano work.
Well, Jules Holland gets away with it, doesn't he? He doesn't. He knows when not to sing.
He's no singer. Yeah,
I think Glenn Tilbrook's holding that for 30 years. That's
I couldn't possibly comment.
Having
worked with him.
That's how it came.
And he lives around here. Right. So, is it that time where, even though it's a very special edition, we still have to draw it to a close with scores?
Yes. Shall I go? Is it me first or you first? I don't know.
Well, if you're volunteering, I think I've decided. Shall I write it down so you don't think I've changed it?
Yeah, if you like. If that's.
Listener, don't tell him, but I'm writing down 2 different scores.
He's right. He's writing
Just
down
need
1,
to remember to show him the
2, 3, 4.
I'll just ring it when I. Right, you'll be shocked what I'm going to give it.
Oh, do you know what? He's such a show off. He's written it on a £50 note. I mean, that is just.
Yeah, but it's your £50 note.
And it's got I've written on that one. I'll throw that one away now. I don't need that anymore. Shall I tell you?
You put that through the wash, which is too a literal interpretation of money laundering, in my view.
Yeah. It's when he irons it. That's when it gets embarrassing.
Yeah, tell me. Us.
For me, it's a 4.
Fantastic. Very pleased.
Not what you've got on your piece of paper, though, is it?
It isn't. Do you need to see it, or do you trust me not to lie?
Are you writing down another one now with the 4 on it?
I am and I'm not.
You're looking all shifty. Yeah.
What did you? I said you would be shocked, and I am, of course, being ironic. What's the least shocking score I could give anything on earth?
What's the least shocking score?
You should know after 100 blinking shows with me.
2.5.
Oh. Least shocking.
Oh,
i.e., the one I give most often.
6.
Keep up. Oh, it's come to this.
I don't know. I don't really pay attention.
Maybe our 100th show is our last.
I'm long in the car by this stage.
I'm going to do a DLT. I've had enough with management. I'm off.
He did it better.
Oh, can I
I don't think he ever went.
Well, he should have done. Maybe if he had done, he'd still have a show.
Give us a number.
It's 3.5. Of course it's 3.5. You knew that all along. I've got it in writing if you need it.
Okay.
Amongst other numbers next to it.
7.5 out of 10 for a bit of Fry and Laurie then.
Yeah, which bit? Well, the best bit.
Next week's homework?
Oh, we're doing another ton.
Yeah.
Okay. I was hoping for a break. We need a, what is it, a sabbatical?
I know what you mean,
We're burnt out. It's not legal.
It's for Room 101, I mean episode 101, I decided to go down the Chris Morris route.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm not giving anything away.
And I'll tell you why. Is because particularly...
Does there need to be a why?
Well, I'd like to tell you why. Because the reason that I chose it, I was looking through some stuff and I saw it and I thought, oh, wonder what that looks like. And I just literally, not of the episode we're gonna slab, but I literally watched about a minute of this and I thought, oh, that's interesting. Okay, how does that look in the modern age? Because it was groundbreaking at the time, wasn't it? Brass Eye is what I'm talking about, in case you haven't guessed.
Ah, yeah. So was that pre the day? No, it was after the day today.
It was after the day today, wasn't it? Yeah. On the Hour was, of course, the radio series.
So he started at the Beat, then Brass Eye's Channel 4.
Channel 4, that's right. Yeah, he did the day. So he did On the Hour on the radio. That became the day today on BBC2, and then he went to Channel 4 and did Brass Eye. Series of 7, curiously. Well, they did 6, and then they did 7 about paedophilia, didn't they? And then the press kind of just played into their hands about thinking this was serious,
it's gone too far.
Yeah, kind of thing. Anyway, so I decided to choose episode 6, which is called Decline. And I think it's kind of the decline of the media they're talking about. So I think it could be a fascinating watch and be interesting to see. Now, will it be funny? Will it be something that floats our boat, and will it get a high score? You'll have to tune into the Comedy Slab podcast next time round to find out.
Would one find it on all four? I know you're going to put it in the blurb.
Do you know, I haven't looked yet, but I'll check it out.
Right. We live in hope. Which is just outside of Slough. Now, thank you. Kindly leave the stage. I suppose I'm doing my anti-social media bit, which is to say we'd love you to follow us on Twitter, where I posted something today that tickled me. Okay, it's a cheat. It was a retweet of something I put under my own account, which I've separately showed you, Shane. I think people should... I had some comeback from someone who was having a sense of humour deficit earlier today, and then an hour later she got it and said, all right, and I finally worked it out. Anyway, that, amongst other things, you will find at Comedy Slab on the Twitter. So do follow us there. Also, we'd love you to like our Facebook page, which is similarly at Comedy Slab. You've got to have a system, as Harry Hill always says. And it'd be great if you gave us the thumbs up there. And a generous star rating. Look, there cannot be a better time, can there, than after our 100th show. We've put the work in. If you wouldn't mind just pretending you're grateful for it. We don't even care if you don't feel it inwardly, but no one's going to know, are they? Just give us a nice, generous star rating, please, on iTunes, Apple Podcasts. And we'd love you even more. And a personal recommendation to friends, family, whomever, whether you're in lockdown or we're post-lockdown, just to anyone over proprietary brand of video conferencing, whatever, just pass the message on, please.
You don't have to use your real name, and you can put your Mac on and turn your collar up while you're doing it, so nobody will be any the wiser. The Comedy Slab lives at Spreaker.com. You can find us quite easily, though, and all the back episodes. Same way, at Comedy Slab. It's all one word. It's easy. You just type it in, whether it's your podcast aggregator or whatever you want to call it. You can go on to Spreaker itself. Spotify is a very popular place, I understand now, to get your podcast from. So we're there as well. Apple Podcasts, iTunes. If there's somewhere that you normally go that you can't find us and you have to go out your way, let us know. Give us a shout, because I can soon sort that one out. And get it in all the right places.
Super. Is that us done?
Yeah. I mean, in hindsight, I wouldn't have sat here and recorded 100 episodes all in one go. Do you know what I mean? It's been very tiring, hasn't it?
We'll do a pee break at the very least, you think.
I think it's time to go, because the bucket under the desk is full anyway.
Oh, you wouldn't let it lie. Well, before Shane kicks the bucket, which we thought might have happened by now.
Or takes the... Yeah, go on.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. It takes it out and drowns poor Twiglet. I think it's probably time to leave you, because we're a bit like Fry Laurie. We don't know how to end a sketch, really. I mean, you said you were going to be yourself, but you're actually playing a character. And
Well, you know what you could say? I mean, as John and Peter always say, Harry is as Harry does.